Welcome back to our daily show. Here's CJ.
It's wanting what you've got. I'm gonna soak up the sun. I'm gonna tell everyone to lighten up. I'm gonna tell them that I've got no one.
Welcome back. Sorry, we're just talking about some really cool stuff that you guys will get to learn about here in a second. We had a busy show today. I'm telling you what, you guys should have been in here about 10:10. We had all 270 backed up, it looked like. Mary, Lamie, Brent Wood, how are we doing this morning, guys?
Good morning. Fantastic.
That is fantastic. So last time Mary came on, we talked about a lot of great things going down with bi-state development. And then you were at the North Alton Godfrey Business Council meeting at Loading Dock and got to talk a little bit more about the Route 3 corridor. And, you know, for folks at home, Mary, that go, well, we drive the road every day. We're, you know, as the song said, soaking up the sun, driving into work through Route 3. I don't think we realize how really important this corridor is. And Mary, right off the bat, could you fill us in a little bit more?
Yeah, so we're talking about Illinois Route 3 from Alton to Columbia, Illinois. 60 miles. We consider it a heavy industrial corridor. It provides access to the region's 6 Class 1 railroads. It has close proximity to the barge industry, has easy access to our 4 interstates. And when you look at the number of employees per mile for manufacturing logistics, it's really one of the higher numbers in the nation. So it's about 366 workers per mile. And when you compare that to other regions, no one really is within that threshold. So what that really means is you have a high concentration of workers in those categories. So for companies who are looking to grow in manufacturing and logistics, it really is an ideal location.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. When you throw that number out, that's an astronomical number. That's almost a video game number is what people would call those. And Mary, could you introduce us to Brent, too? Because Brent Wood, you're in here. Mary brought a friend this time. And take us through this with your role with the National Freight Rail Network.
Yeah, so I'll start off. I'm sorry.
Let me redo this. Okay. I get paid to do this job, guys. The president of the Terminal Railroad Association, I was reading the wrong line. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, so our role, TRRA, has been around since 1889, one of the oldest companies, used to be the largest employer in St. Louis. But our role is to connect all of the Class 1 railroads in the country. So you have east and west roads, there's 6 of them, and you have north and south. And so our criticality is that we can connect all of those. So many cities have 1 or 2 railroads running through. We can connect to all, so it makes St. Louis positioned in a spectacular way, really. It just needs to be grown and promoted.
And Mary, is this going back to what you were talking about at the luncheon too? Was just all these opportunities that are right there on that corridor and right there in just our coverage area with bi-state. I mean, this is astronomical. No wonder we're growing so much, right?
Yeah, and I think what makes us unique, you know, we have a geographic advantage about being in the center of the U.S., strategic location on the Mississippi River, ice-free, lock-free to and from the Gulf of Mexico. So what that means is north of our area, there are lock-in dams. They act basically like traffic signals, and they add additional time. So we have a geographic advantage, great location on the Mississippi River. But what makes us a global logistics hub is the fact that we have the interconnectivity with the infrastructure. So we have the rail component that Brent had mentioned. Then you have that interconnectivity with the infrastructure. You have the harbors like at America Central Port with Granite City Harbor, and the fact that it has direct access to the rail. Then we have the interstates, 255, 270. All of that connectivity gives shippers and carriers optionality. So if something happens with gas prices or something happens in the transportation industry and freight needs to go from one mode to the other, if you're coming to the St. Louis area in a matter of minutes, you can redirect it to another mode of transportation.
That is impressive. And now with that being said, you know, Brent, on top of that, the importance of the region's role in all of this when we're talking about the supply chain disruptions from a rail perspective, talk about that importance.
Well, absolutely. I think you can look to last year during the pandemic. All of that freight company that was on the West Coast needs to go east and east needs to go west. We were able to be sort of an overflow for that. So we got more traffic through St. Louis because of that. Chicago's the #1 hub rail hub east to west. St. Louis is number 2. We have 2 bridges. The only 2 railroad bridges in St. Louis are bookends, one by the MacArthur Bridge by the Busch Stadium facility, and then the Merchants Bridge, which we just rebuilt.
Right.
And we've near doubled the capacity on the Merchants Bridge by rebuilding it in the last 4 or 5 years. So we're poised and ready for more traffic.
That's just incredible. And now, with that being said, is that common to have 2 of the top rail, I guess what you were saying with Chicago and St. Louis, is that common to have it in the same region, or is that just because of the location in the country?
Yeah, I think it's the location.
Okay.
We're sort of the center, east, west, north,
Right.
south. But we are also the overflow, so not that you want a catastrophe, but if there's a snowstorm in Chicago, we're the overflow. We can take that right away. Same way with a hurricane in the Gulf. They can bring the traffic through St. Louis.
And one of those that you don't want to use it unless you need to use it type of situations, but to have that, role of going, hey, if it hits, if something happens, we're going to be here to make sure that the supply chain isn't disrupted and we can keep going, or at least try to, like normal. I mean,
Right.
You can't ask for anything more than that, and it just shows how critical this area is again. Every time I talk to you, Mary, and then Brent now too, I'm finding it so fascinating how many aspects of especially this type of industry that not a lot of us know about, and it's right in front of us,
Yeah, it's amazing, and I guess the other thing I would say about terminals, think of us like UPS or FedEx, only bigger packages, but we are the distribution for the rail.
Gotcha. That is really, I'm telling you what, my mind's blown. And now with that, Ag Coast of America, I think is a great name because it really does fit the mold of what your guys' region is. And now with that being said, take me through this, Mary, the importance of this multimodal infrastructure that you guys have.
Yeah, I think the other important thing we need to focus on is we've talked about the multimodal component and the fact that you have all these modes of transportation in close proximity. We have the infrastructure. We continue to invest in it, like the Merchants Bridge that was recently completed last year, the Interstate 270 Chain of Rocks Bridge that's currently under construction. That's a $459 million project. So that's what's going on here locally. But I think let's go back to the fact that we have the 6 Class 1 railroads operating in this area. Here's what's important. St. Louis, we're basically where the West Coast rail carriers meet the East Coast rail carriers. So we are basically the nexus of the railroads that basically Union Pacific and the BNSF Railroad, they travel from St. Louis to the West Coast, to Port LA, Long Beach. Once they get to St. Louis, they do not go any further east, okay? For the East Coast railroads, the Norfolk Southern and the CSX, they just go back and forth to the East Coast. So that's where we are the nexus. So for companies coming to the St. Louis area, if you come to St. Louis, you have that global access to all of those coastal ports. Because again, in a blink of an eye, if you need to go to the East Coast, you can simply put it on a train. Going back to Brent's analogy, we have scheduled rail service to those coastal ports. So it's just like with Southwestern Airlines, if they have direct flights back and forth to New York, we have direct rail trips back and forth to those coastal ports. And that's obviously those rates are cheaper than if you're booking a chartered flight.
True.
Your chartered flight is going to be at a higher rate. For St. Louis, we have those scheduled trips going back and forth. So because of that rail component being in close proximity to the most strategic location on the Mississippi River, and then all of the interstates. And again, if you look at our interstates, they will allow you to get to the 4 quadrants of the United States. They're toll-free. We have relatively low congestion for this area.
True.
So we literally are a global logistics hub. Now, with that said, we have branded ourselves as Ag Coast of America. We received international media coverage on that. Nowhere else on the inland waterway system is moving the amount of ag or fertilizer products within a 15-mile section of the river. And that section of the river is literally 7.5 miles north and south of the Gateway Arch. And the reason for that is, again, most strategic location on the Mississippi River, but it's the infrastructure. And it's the fact that you have
hand in
great
hand.
barge rates and rail rates and that interconnectivity those modes have with each other.
This is just incredible. If you guys are just tuning in, you're missing out on a fantastic conversation. We have one last break to take, so let's do that now. We'll be back on in about 1:30 with Brent Wood, Mary Lamie. We are talking all about just a phenomenal piece, whether it's bi-state development, whether it's TRRA, all that conversation continuing after a quick one in downtown Alton.
You won't find a better health club than Nautilus Fitness Center. More cardio, more free weights and equipment, more classes, a swimming pool, and more. If you're serious about your health and want to make a change, then stop thinking about it and visit Nautilus Fitness Center on Industrial Drive in Alton. Don't fall for the hype you get from the other health clubs. Nautilus is the Riverbend's premier health club. Has been for years and will be for years to come. Get to Nautilus Fitness Center and get started on a healthier new you.
RiverBender Radio has built 3 great new stations just for you in the Riverbend. The Eagle, the Riverbend's classic rock station. The Bridge, hit music for the Riverbend. And The River, today's country, and all your favorites. Check them out today at RiverBender.com.
Is it time to buy, sell, or even time to consider a short sale of your property? Meet Lisa Webb, owner of 3rd Street Realty. This local, women-owned, family-operated realty group has over a decade of experience in foreclosures, first-time home buying, and so much more. 3rd Street Realty prides themselves on holding your hand through the entire process. Let their expertise guide you to your dream home. Visit 3rdstrealty.com and start your journey with Lisa Webb today.
You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Naselli.
Oh, welcome back, 10:53. We got to get to it. We had a busy after 10 o'clock show. Mary Lamie Brentwood in the studio as we are again talking about the TRRA and at Coast of America by state development. And I'm just so fascinated. Our text line just going nuts over some of these statistics you're throwing out at us. Now, when you guys talk with folks about your roles and about the region's role as a whole, do you get those same reactions like, there's no way?
Yeah, I think we assume, or I always assumed that people knew it.
Right.
You know, and when we started working with the Freightway, I think I had my eyes opened on that, you know, you really do have to sell yourself. And I think Mary's done a great job with the Freightway and selling that around the world.
Without a doubt. And I wanted to ask you, Brent, about the Madison Yard project on the, the priority projects list. And we're talking about, TRA's operations in Illinois Route 3's corridor. Take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I will. So our classifying yard is in Venice. And it will run about 2,000 cars a day, 1,000 in and out. And this yard expansion, which is about a $70 million project, would add another 1,500 cars of capacity. It could be used for storage. It could be used for more throughput. It'll allay a number of issues. One being the velocity of trains. So Amtrak coming through. Amtrak runs on us. I think you have a station here in Alton,
right up the road.
But we have to keep that fluid. And an example, we had our classifying yard right now has 2,000 to 3,000 foot tracks. There's 60 of them. Trains nowadays are 10,000 feet. And so it takes 3 times as long to yard a train. We had a 14,000-foot train the other day.
Oh, how long did that take you?
Well, it took 3 hours, and it hung from the Illinois side across the Merchants Bridge and down towards the city.
Wow.
It took 3 hours to get through the yard. So this classifying yard's a big deal. Not just for terminal, but for the region.
Without a doubt. So this is going to help alleviate a lot of those issues, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and in addition, block crossings are always an issue. It will help with the velocity of trains, so they won't be blocking those crossings as long.
And now, with that being said, talking about this project, I got to ask, even though I get myself in trouble when I do this, are there any jobs available upcoming in the area for this type of work?
Well, absolutely. So there'll be construction jobs, like there were with the Merchants Bridge.
Yep.
We had 300 or 400 people on site at one point. But the yard itself, we're always looking for transportation folks, and you don't have to have any experience. They'll teach you what you need to know.
Oh,
but
wow.
Pay rates are outstanding. It's a union operation, anywhere from 85,000 to 150. You have to work overtime. The schedule's not always what you want it to be, but it's a good living. It really is.
And now, with that, any educational requirements to get started?
No, high school degree, and you'll be trained to do, hard work, a work ethic.
Yes, it is.
It's a work ethic, but there's mechanical jobs, welders, track, labor, locomotive engineers. That's what everybody wants to do. It takes a while to be a locomotive engineer, but you can find something
Well, I was telling, I think I told you this, Mary, last time with my uncle Jeff. He's up in Chicago on one of the rail yards and one of the executives up there. But he started the same way. He was on the rail working as a young kid and worked his way up and said one of the best jobs and careers he could have ever asked for. And that could await somebody right here too if they were interested. And I think that's always great to highlight too. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that goes for anything in the Freightway. Everybody's looking for, employees. And
if we had somebody from the barge industry, they would say the same thing that Brent is saying as far as training programs, high school degree. But I think what's really important is there are so many communities up and down the Mississippi River where people are not familiar with these job opportunities.
Right.
They're exciting, they're fun, and obviously they play a significant role in the global supply chain.
Well, you're absolutely right. And on top of that, I mean, I keep thinking about all these, kids that go to, the 4-year schools. And I think that's great. We need those. But there's also so much more room and sometimes a lot better paying positions in, a little bit more of a trade or something like this with the rail yard or on the barge or you name it. I mean, there's so many opportunities that await so many people here.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a matter of building that awareness that they know that there are these fun, exciting jobs out there. There are training programs out there, whether it's with Southwestern Community College, Lewis and Clark Community College. They have trade programs. They have 2-year degrees. There's apprenticeship programs through all of these different industries.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then our office, we actually partner with organizations like Terminal Railroad Association and the barge industry. The Gateway Arch riverboats in front of the Gateway Arch, first Wednesday of each month. We have Ag Coast of America riverboat cruise, and we encourage educators and students to come down. It's narrated where we're focusing on the transportation and the freight industry, and you can see firsthand what those jobs entail.
Now, you know what's funny? I actually had somebody send me an email and said they did the cruise and they thought it was so enlightening and they learned so much and got a lot out of it too. And now, Mary, let's circle back real quick too, because I wanted to ask you about, because we've been driving this home, but just again, the importance of Route 3 with your position with Bi-State Development. How important is that corridor? Let's just say, God forbid something happens and we don't have Route 3 down to Columbia. What's that look like?
Well, I mean, from a jobs perspective, it's one of the primary manufacturing logistics corridors that we have. Right now, we have a little bit over 13% of our workforce along Route 3 that consists of manufacturing and logistics. On average, the U.S. is anywhere from like 5% to 8%. So you can see we're double those numbers. Wow. I think the other part is just from a jobs and growth opportunity, it really is one of the best ecosystems. And part of it is for everything we talked about, the infrastructure. You have the rail, the barge, the first mile, last mile for trucks to be able to get in and out. But more importantly, you have that workforce there. It's a very specialized workforce, so it makes it easy for all those companies to work with each other. The other thing is there is a lot of different interactions with those companies. A lot of times a company will be producing a raw material, but another company needs the raw material to manufacture a product, to partially assemble it, kind of like with the steel industry or with the chemical industry or with the soap industry. And so there's a lot of interaction, and all those companies are located around the Route 3 corridor, and they're moving products up and down Route 3. And by doing that and being in close proximity, it really reduces your cost of business, and it makes it very cost effective to be located along that corridor.
Wow. I mean, just wow. And I know that so many are watching this right now or listening, or maybe they're watching live or on demand later, going, I had no idea. I mean, no idea. And it's one of those take it for granted things because you use it so much and you utilize it. And, with that being said, I wanted to ask you very briefly, because I'm going to get yelled at, but we're already over time, but that's okay. I'm just having too much fun here. I wanted to ask about the how you guys, kind of adapt and provide resources for those disruptions, because you hit on this really just in a great way at the North Alton Godfrey Business Council. And Brent, I'd like to hear your kind of input on this as well before we wrap up today as well.
Yeah. So, and I think I talked about the little bit with the pandemic, but we're always ready to help. We have plenty of storage space, and so if there is something where trains need to be stored or inventory needs to be stored, we can take care of that. Yeah. But we're spending a lot of our time trying to develop help the Freightway develop this area because we have capacity.
Well, and that's, to me, is nobody realizes all the work that's being done right now. And how long have you been in your position?
So
Brent?
I've been in my position for about 2 years. I've been with the railroad about 6. So
And now, in the 6 years, though, how have you seen it, kind of develop with all these projects? Have you been able to observe that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Our the ports, and I go back many more years before that, but about 5% of the grain came through our port. Now it's around 20, I believe.
Oh,
25% of the grain going down the Mississippi is originating here. So we've seen that, and we've seen a lot of, when you look back 6 years, terminal itself has grown.
That's just incredible. And then, Mary, if you don't mind me piggybacking to you real quick over this, because I think this is such a fascinating topic.
Here's a really easy way to better understand the fact that we have low congestion. So when a train is traveling through the Chicago area, typically it takes about 3 days for that train to travel through Chicago. For it then to travel from Chicago to LA or Long Beach takes about 3 days. So if that gives you an idea how much congestion. Now, if there's a severe weather event, that's where those trains are typically rerouted to the St. Louis area because we have that available capacity. So you can see the congestion they have in Chicago. And when you have severe weather at any of these locations throughout the U.S., if there's changes in the cost of energy, like in the California area, there were times where it wasn't cost effective to ship ag products to China. And all of a sudden they had all of their product. And normally it would be railed from the state of Washington to Long Beach or L.A. And instead they're like, what are we going to do? And they knew you had that rail corridor to the St. Louis area. They knew that you would be able to easily move it from rail to a barge in the St. Louis area. They knew our rates were very cost effective to ship it to New Orleans. From there, it went on the big ocean carrier vessels and it went to a new customer in Egypt. So that's an example of where we are constantly being used as a reliever to the supply chain. But the other thing is, so we already have the geographic advantage, the infrastructure, but we continue to invest in it. So that is the secret to our success with projects like the Merchants Rail Bridge.
And I'm telling you what, and with the Madison Yard project as well being added on to that, I mean, these are great opportunities that await us. And what do you guys foresee coming down the pipeline? Is even more growth, even more development?
I think yes. I'm not sure about the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, economically, there's been a slowdown. We've seen a little slowdown, but still pretty strong. And we're actually taking this opportunity to expand and get ready for that. And then we've got our other bridge, the MacArthur Bridge, getting ready to embark on a $60 million project.
I was going to ask you about that because you're doubling rail capacity on that, aren't you?
We're and it's, those bridges were, the Merchants was in 1882, I think, when it was commissioned. And it's still, it'll last another 200 years the way the work was done. And the MacArthur is, 1912 vintage. So those structures take a lot of work and money to maintain.
Wow. And now with that, we were talking a little bit earlier about the bottlenecks. Does that help alleviate that a little bit more?
Yeah, so on the Merchants Bridge, we had one track available, but the other, it couldn't handle the capacity of the wide, long trains. And it had a speed restriction of 5 miles an hour. So now we can go up to 20 miles an hour, 2 trains crossing at the same time. So it doubles the capacity, basically. That's
really impressive, actually. That's a great
Now, the yard project, I mean, you still get a bottleneck.
Right.
It's just, where's the bottleneck? So the yard project will alleviate any future bottlenecks.
I'm telling you what, I know why I have Brent and Mary on, because you guys have made me understand this. I almost texted Patty or sent her an email that said, is there a book that says, the Illinois Route 3 corridor for dummies, so that way I can really feel good about this? But you guys are a wealth of knowledge, and it's one of those where, I mean, we could talk day after day over the accomplishments and the developments. Mary, what do you see coming down the pipeline? Anything?
Yeah, so I think we've got a great track record, number one, from infrastructure investment. But the other thing we're investing a lot of our time and effort is repurposing vacant industrial land. So one of our best successes is America's Central Port in Granite City. That is a former Army base that has been repurposed. They have 2 harbors. It is one of the region's most successful public ports that we have. They have more than 2 million square feet of rail-served warehouses. They've got construction going underway. And so this is a great template where they're attracting manufacturing companies, having great jobs that are high paying. And then you've got, again, this abundance of all the modes of infrastructure all in that location. And then like what Brent had said, in the East St. Louis, Venice area, again, repurposing former industrial land. And that's kind of the template that we're focusing
Yeah,
a
when
lot
you
of our
go from the
attention.
stand span south to the MacArthur Bridge, there's a lot of vacant land in that area. Very, very prime for more ports and more capacity.
More opportunity.
All rail served, all truck, there's a lot of uses for it, but certainly transportation is the large item.
That is just fantastic. And I mean, so that means there's a lot of things to look forward to as well. I mean, there's room to grow. There's room to add different features. So is that kind of the layout of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
I know a terminal has about 250 acres of land in that area that's prime for that service. So,
And then if you visit our website, Freightway.com, we've got an interactive map that lists all the industrial real estate sites on both sides of the river.
Yep.
And so it's really a great tool to streamline the process for site selectors and brokers. So depending on what mode that they're interested in, what state they're interested in, what proximity do they want to have with other manufacturing companies, it's all on that. And then we stepped up our game earlier this year where we've released another list of sites specifically for rail accessibility. And so that's where a number of those sites obviously are on the Illinois side, and we feel that that's just a really great way of making it easier for site selectors, shippers, and carriers to know about some of the great opportunities that you have in this area, and really how you can take advantage of the great barge, truck, and rail rates that we offer.
yeah, there's a lot of work going on to be, quote, shovel ready.
Yeah.
That's what folks who are looking for that one is how quickly can we get started,
Right.
and not have to go through all the permitting and all that process. So we're doing a lot of work right now to try to get some of that out of the way.
Man, that's just fantastic. And what's the best way to stay up to date with the Terminal Railroad as well?
Yeah, so we do have a website. It's actually been redesigned. We haven't launched the website.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a little bit dated, but it's terminalrailroad.com.
But a new one's coming.
And anyone looking for job opportunities can post on there and submit resumes and the like. So
You know what we call that, Mary? A tease. A new website is being developed, but still right now a great time for you guys to check out some employment opportunities. Mary, Brent, thank you guys so much. And I didn't mean to scare you earlier with so many guests in here, but we got through it, and I really learned so much, and our audience, I know they did too. So thank you guys so much for your time. I know you're busy.
Thanks for the
we
invitation.
Appreciate the invitation to be here.
Well, we're out of time. That means my Monday is halfway done. With that being said, I'll see you guys back here on Tuesday. We are talking community Christmas and so much more. I hope you join me live at 9 for more of our daily show. On that note, have a great Monday and try your best to stay out of jail.